Hello and welcome to the Point to Rise show. This is your host, Susanne, former international ballerina that found her passion in mindset, business, and technology, and is today the founder of Rise Media. It is my purpose to use all the experiences of my past to create a better, financially sustainable future for the performing arts industry. And that starts with every single one of us. I believe that being you is your superpower. And I am here to guide you, empower you, inspire you, and give you all the resources you need to rise above what you think you're capable of. Every week, I'll bring you 3 shows featuring guests, collaboration, and mini episodes to ensure that you have the support in your journey as a performer. I want you to know that you are not alone. Stop chasing and start creating. Your success starts now, here with you. So let's go. And we're back. Welcome to Cultivating Happier Dancers. We're so glad to be back with you. Thank you for the beautiful downloads that we have received from, I'm talking to our audience right now, over 1,000 downloads for our first episode. I mean, that's freaking rocking, may I just say. I want to quickly shout out us 3 right now because it is Sunday morning at 8 a.m. We are recording, batching, and we have lives, we have kids, we have families, and we're still showing up for this community, for our communities, for making a difference, and for what we're standing for. So this is to the 3 of us, and it's to everybody else who can feel this and who's in the same boat. We see you, we hear you, and we love you. So thank you.
Thank you, Susanne.
Well, yeah, of course. What do you think?
I'm like, yeah, like I thought I was good and inspired and ready to go, but now I'm like even more great and inspired and ready to go.
By the way, you have to go to the YouTube video just in case you're not looking at the audiogram on Instagram. The earrings that are in the house today, they top everything.
We're good.
Just saying. Yeah, we're good. All right. So today we are going to talk about the mean girl syndrome, what that means, where it comes from, what the little bit of a science behind it, and how you can like prevent it or set an atmosphere in your studio, in your company, in your world that something like that doesn't have room to exist. Okay. So story time.
Story time.
Go ahead, girl.
I've got a story. Okay. So I'm actually super fortunate in that my story is not from being a dancer and having to deal with this. I really never did. And I know that that's not usual. I think a lot of young dancers, especially young girl dancers, and young male dancers as well, have dealt with this, group mentality and being mean towards each other. I actually never did. And again, I'm super, super grateful. However, I have come across it as an educator many times. And so that's sort of where my story is. So I'm a young teacher. It's, I'm like I think I know what I'm doing. This is the phase of teaching I'm in where I think I know what I'm doing. Now I just realize no one knows what they're doing. So I'm still kind of thinking I get how the world works and I know how a studio works and I get people. I come across a class. It was a ballet class. It was all girls or female identifying from what I could tell. And they just were mean. Like there were some cliques in there that really made it uncomfortable. And like the energy was palpable. And I felt it as an educator where, okay, there's something happening in this room where people aren't getting along. And I don't know the whole backstory. I don't want to know the whole backstory. I'm a young teacher. I just want to get through this hour and a half and like have these students learn and have it be a fun experience selfishly for me too, because this is a drain on what I'm doing, right? So I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have no idea. I don't know how to fix this. Like, do I separate them? Do I throw somebody out of the room? Like, I just didn't know what to do. My instinct was to just try to make it a safe space as possible. So here's what I started doing. I cut out group work. We're not going in groups anymore. I don't care how smushed you are, one group only, because I don't like it when other people are feeling watched by other people in the room. So we stopped doing groups and we just went one group only. Then across the floor, and this is a true story, I'm like, how do I do this? I made everyone stand. I specifically started each across the floor combination facing upstage in like, a fourth arabesque so that, and they had to look towards the corner. And I'm saying, like, we're staging this. I staged the entire class to hardly look at each other when they were dancing. And I made it a thing. Like, we're learning this because this is how you would enter the space if you were in a ballet, you know, all the stuff. And I did it for weeks, and it was really hard because, of course, everybody's natural inclination is just to watch what's happening in the room. And I'd have to be like, head. I mean, I treated it like a rehearsal. And here's what happened. Not to my surprise, the students in the room that I felt like were very aware of being watched, and maybe the quieter ones and the ones that were maybe the ones being the recipients of this mean girl energy, started to blossom because they didn't feel the eyeballs of judgment on them from the people that were being mean, right? That wasn't a shock to me. I felt like, okay, great. Like, we're finally getting to a space. What was a shock to me is not only did the ones blossom that were the recipients of that energy, but the ones giving off that energy also blossomed. And I was like, well, this is interesting, right? As an educator, that was a moment for me where I went, oh, so the ones that are loud and what we would consider mean are just struggling too. And I know that as a human, and it was a point in my educator's journey where I kind of started connecting the dots between dancers and humans. And we're all just humans in the room. And these, you know, regardless of where you are in this mean girl drama, everyone just wants to feel good about themselves and feel supported and not be scared to try new things because they don't want to be judged, right? So that's my mean girl educator story.
It's interesting. Well, I'm glad that you didn't have a lot of like mean girl stuff in dance. I had a lot of mean girl stuff, but you know, it's hard when you're in it, right? Like, my mom picked me up from high school for almost a year because I kept getting so many death threats in my locker from like the mean girls at my school. Like, I mean, like pictures of knives drawn with like blood and like, I mean, it was like a whole thing. But, you know, looking at it from afar, like when you're not in it, you're like, oh gosh, those people are hurting. You know, like they're hurting so much that they need to like put the hurt out onto the world, like onto other people. So I did a little like research on like the mean girl, you know, syndrome and like how we treat each other poorly and why we treat each other poorly. And I mean, I think we all know this, like it's natural to compare ourselves to others. Like this is what we do as humans. And it's sometimes good for us, right? So our comparisons can be good. They can build us up. They can also bring us down, usually because we want to feel good. Or when we need to feel good, we compare ourselves to people that we don't think are as good as us. And like, it's a downward comparison, right? So we want to feel good. So we like put other people down. And, you know, it can be like, you know, social comparison theory is something that's really interesting and complex, but in the dance world, it's even more complex because dancers are like all put in the same room and like basically compared to each other because we're casting them and like, you know, we're like calling people out in class and it's a whole thing. I found it's interesting. I read a little Freud. Freud suggested that people cope with negative views of themselves by seeing their negative trait in others. And this is something I saw a lot, right? Or have seen in teaching, and that like a dancer that's struggling with body image issues, like whether they're thin or you know, or larger or like perfect or not, like they'll call other students fat, or they'll make fun of other students' bodies because they're thinking about their own body and their own body image issues and like projecting that onto other people and seeing that. And then that's them seeing that and then projecting that, it like, you know, it like brings them into like a downward comparison like situation, which is unfortunate, but it is also like kind of an indicator. Like as dance teachers, we don't always hear and see what's going on. We don't like, you know, mean girl syndrome is something that like we get the whispers of, right? Like we don't always like, most dancers aren't going to like say something really mean to like their fellow dancer in front of their teacher, right? But when we do hear it, it's something good to know, because if we're hearing what they're saying to each other, we can have a little window into what the mean person is struggling with. So I think that's really interesting. But also like mostly researchers also, I have a quote, researchers discovered that threatened self-esteem drives aggression. So dancers' self-esteem is often wrapped up in their identity as a dancer. And I think that's a big problem because dancers, it's if they have a bad day at the bar or they mess up a performance or they fall down on stage, then not only do they, not feel good about messing up, it's like it's a dart to their entire identity. So like, it's not, oh no, I did a bad performance. It's, I'm a bad dancer and thus I'm a bad person. Right. So one of the things that's really important for, really bolstering students' self-esteem is finding a way to separate their identity from their dancing. Like seeing dancers as complete humans. Like, what do you do that's outside of dance? Like, what kind of hobbies do you have? Like, you're a smart person, you're a good sister, you're like all of those things, which seems kind of counterintuitive, especially for dance teachers who have like 90 minutes to get through all of these things and like 3 months to get these kids ready for, this performance. But it's so important to build up dancers' self-esteem outside of the dance world so that they can feel good about themselves, even if the dancing doesn't go well.
Hey, so I think our episode is going to be 3 hours long. No, just kidding, guys. Don't worry about it. But there's so much in there because these two core things that you talked about, Michelle, about self-esteem and comparing are two core things that we see happening in the ballet studios, in the companies, with mostly every dancer that is struggling with either the lack or it being too much, right? And we are not educating ourselves to the point where we're actually understanding why we're comparing and why self-esteem is so low, right? So I listened to one of the IG lives that you did this week, and was it Andrea, her name? She had just this beautiful, tiny little thing that she did, and she put out a whiteboard, she had it in class, and she had things written on it. And it made such a huge impact to everyone in that studio. And it doesn't take much to make a difference. And I think that is the message over and over and over again. You just got to start. And we have 3 suggestions on how you can actually break through that mean girl syndrome, meaning that energy that may be lingering in your studio, in your company, that feels off, where you can just, people are not treating each other with respect and dignity, but yet you don't have any kind of, I would say, like proof to it, right? So the first thing I personally would do is to define what actually being mean to each other really means. Like, what does that look like? Many people maybe don't even know what that means. Many people may have not received that kind of language yet in their upbringing from their home. That could be. So be really clear about what mean or being mean to each other really means, and how that is not acceptable for A, B, C reason, right? Then go further actually and define the words gossip, teasing, taunting, humiliation. What is a clique? Cyberbullying, dealing with that a lot nowadays, right? So have that written out in your studio very clearly. And whenever you feel like, oh, I feel like this is going on, tap on it and ask and check for understanding with your crew, with your people, with your girls and boys that are in your class, that are in your hands and really want to, learn from you. And then from there, you choose to really set clear expectations and boundaries. This is the expectation. Here's the boundary. You go beyond that. That is the consequence. We're not accepting this. We're talking it out. And I wouldn't even go as in, you're being thrown out of the class, or this is all like so old school. No, we got to talk about hurt people. That is the only reason why we see this kind of behavior in our studios, in our companies, right? Because we don't know how to vent at any point. We feel so low that we try to lift ourselves up through others. So expectations, boundaries, and really have consequences into place. And then number 3, model those expectations every single hour, every single minute you're in the studio. Talk about it. Motivate your people. Like, you can learn, and we talked about this in an episode prior to this one, that we only learn, we only feel safe in a space where we talk, where we not assume, where we're open with each other, where we're not judging, where we're not comparing, where our self-esteem is high, where we can be who we are and not trying to fit those poor people into boxes, right? So model that behavior, and meaning don't exclude anyone, even if they show perhaps behaviors that are not fitting in your expectations. Have a conversation with them without singling them out. Include them, because I bet my bottom dollars that they're really, really, truly hurting, and that they actually just want to be included. It's their cry for help. Michelle, I see you want to something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I just wanted to say, like, so we call it mean girl syndrome because mean girls is you know, a term, but just to like be clear, this applies to all students who identify as any gender. Like this is, you know, it happens a lot, and it can be a lot more prevalent in dance, but it's everywhere. Like, for everyone. So
it is everywhere. And by the way, I was bullied by boys when I was going through school, not by girls. So just to put that out there. So it can be everybody. And thank you for bringing that up. That's true. Yeah. Okay, ladies, anything to add? Anything we want to send off by wrapping up this episode?
Yeah, well, just that we have a PDF extra worksheet for you all to use in your classroom. And so make sure to check it out. I would just need you to like sign up for it. We'll send it to you. And also feel free to share this with your friends, with your fellow dance teachers. It's so important. And there are so many small changes that you can make to really make huge differences in your classrooms. So please share and check out the PDF.
Sending you so much love. Thank you for listening. Kristin, anything you want to add something?
I'm just over here like I'm absorbing all the love and the energy, and I couldn't agree more with what everyone said on this whole episode. It really is so important, and tiny shifts make a huge difference in young people's lives. Really, really huge. And I know, like, to sort of call back to the beginning of this, I know as an educator, it can sometimes feel like the easiest decision is just to ignore those students that are giving you a hard time. And sometimes that is the right decision in many cases, but don't give up on them, because they're usually the ones that need the most.
Don't give up. There's a reason why you wanted to educate others, right? Like really tap into your why and remember that regardless on how hard it is. Thank you for saying that. All right, guys, like, follow, share, review. That means the world to us. And we're sending you so much love. So till next time, guys. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.